Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Welcome to your English lesson this week. Now, this week we're going to be reading the story Hansel and Gretel. I'm very excited to be reading this story. That house looks delicious, doesn't it? Oh, yeah. Now, before we begin, I've got a little recap question. Let me move my camera over to here. So my recap question is, what key features do fairy tales and traditional tales have? We need to think right back to when we started with Jack and the Beanstalk. What key features do the traditional tales or fairy tales have? You don't need to write this down. You can just talk to somebody in your room, or if there's nobody in there, talk to your teddy bear. Pause the video here. Have a think, have a talk. Welcome back. What did you decide? I wonder if you've got the same. So let's see. So some key features of a fairy tale or a traditional tale. Well, one of the first things is we always have a main character, don't we? Now in Jack and the Beanstalk it was Jack, that's right. In Cinderella it could be Cinderella, that's right. Little Red Riding Hood. It'd be Little Red Riding Hood. Well done. So we always have a main character. There's often some magical element, something that happens that wouldn't normally happen. So, for example, in Jack and the Beanstalk, a huge beanstalk grew. In Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, she ate a poisoned apple, didn't she? And she had to go and live, before she ate the poisoned apple, she had to go and live with 7 dwarfs in and she was banished to the forest. And that wouldn't happen normally. Also, and also in Snow White, we had the magic mirror, didn't we? Also, in, for example, Jack and the Beanstalk 2, we had the golden hen that laid the golden eggs. That doesn't happen normally, does it? So lots of magic and things that don't normally happen in fairy tales. We also have animals that talk. Think about the 3 little pigs, the big bad wolf, Goldilocks and the 3 bears. The animals, they talk in there, don't they? Brilliant. Now, often it's set in either a forest, a countryside, or a magical type castle. So if you think of, for example, the Gingerbread Man, that's set in the countryside, isn't it? If you think of Little Red Riding Hood, it's set in the forest. Jack and the Beanstalk is set in the magic castle. There's often a villain as well. So we had like the troll, the giant, the big bad wolf, the nasty fox. Lots of villains in there. Did you get the same? Excellent. I'm so pleased that you did. Well done. Okay. Now, often there's a problem. So the main character and the villain, there's often a problem, isn't there? And something happens. Most of the time, the main character overcomes that problem and is successful. The only one I can think of where the main character is not successful with the villain is the Gingerbread Man. Because that fox swims across the river. And the problem is that the Gingerbread Man can't get across the river. However, he gets gobbled up by the fox at the end, doesn't he? Oh dear. Okay, let's move on today then. So today you're going to be using your retrieval skills. That means you're going to be looking in the text and you're going to be pulling out information from the text. So to be successful in this today, you're going to have to recall key events in the story. And you are so good at this now, so you'll be able to do this with ease. And you're going to have to find key words in the story. That's going to help you to be successful at answering the questions today. Okay, are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin our story. Once upon a time, there lived 2 children called Hansel and Gretel. They lived with their father and stepmother in a house in the woods. Their father was a woodcutter. Now I look at here, Hansel and Gretel, they seem quite happy. Dad seems quite happy. Stepmom, she looks a little bit cross and angry, doesn't she? I wonder what's going to happen there. Let's find out. The woodcutter was very poor. Oh no, that means they haven't got any money. And they could no longer, just checking that I couldn't miss any word there, and he could no longer provide food for his family. One night, his wife suggested that they take the children into the forest and leave them there. Oh my goodness, how awful! How would you feel if your mum or dad took you to the forest and left you there? I know, I would feel devastated too. Hansel and Gretel overheard what their stepmother had said, and they were very sad. Hansel crept outside and found some white pebbles. They shone brightly in the moonlight. He filled his pockets with the pebbles and crept back inside. We have a vocabulary check here. So we're going to check the word crept. Okay, so in the book it says Hansel crept outside. So the word crept is a verb. It's a doing word, it's an action word. But the word crept is in the past. It's past tense, so it's already happened. And the definition of crept is to move slowly and carefully in order to avoid being heard or noticed. You creep really quietly. So if I put it into a sentence, I would say, Aidan crept downstairs on Christmas morning. Did you, Aidan? I thought you might have. Now, the synonyms, that means words that mean the same, but are different words, are sneak, slink and tiptoe. And let's see if I put those words into our sentence, if they sound the same. So Aidan sneaked downstairs on Christmas morning. That does sound the same, doesn't it? It has the same meaning. It's just a different word, just a different synonym. Aidan tiptoed downstairs. I bet you tiptoed more than crept. I think so, yes. On Christmas morning. Another one is slink. Often people say that foxes slink around. They move quite quickly and quietly, and cats like to slink around as well. Aidan slinked downstairs on Christmas morning. Excellent. Let's carry on with the story. The next morning, they all went for a walk in the forest. And as they walked, Hansel dropped the pebbles along the path. They went further and further into the forest, and Hansel and Gretel grew tired. So the woodcutter made a fire and told them to rest there. When they woke, they were all alone. But Hansel's plan had worked. They could follow the stones all the way home. Well done, Hansel. When they arrived home, the woodcutter was overjoyed. However, the stepmother was very cross. Later that night, she told the woodcutter that he must get rid of the children again. What a horrible lady. Very cruel. The next day, the stepmother gave Hansel and Gretel 2 slices of bread for their breakfast, and they set out into the forest again. This time they walked a lot further into the heart of the forest. That means the middle of the forest. As they walked along, Hansel dropped breadcrumbs along the path. When the children were tired, the woodcutter told them to gather wood so he could build them a fire. He told them to rest by the fire, and once again they fell asleep. When they woke, they found themselves alone again. Hansel was not worried. He told Gretel about the breadcrumbs. But when they looked along the path, they found they'd been eaten by all the birds and animals in the forest. Oh no! What will they do? What do you think they might do? Shall we find out? Hansel and Gretel walked and walked through the forest. Eventually, they came across an amazing house. It was made of gingerbread and decorated with sweets, icing and lollipops, and I can even see a straw for a chimney there. And they've got little gumdrops around the window, and that looks like frosting around the door frame. Oh, that looks delicious. Hansel and Gretel began eating the sweets. Then, all of a sudden, an old woman came out of the gingerbread house, and she invited them both inside. Do you think they should go with her? Yes? No? I don't know. I feel a little bit worried about that. Let's find out what happened. But once inside, they found that the old woman was very cruel. She locked Hansel in a cage, and she wanted to fatten him up and eat him. No! Vocabulary check. The old woman was very cruel. We're going to have a look at that word cruel. Cruel is an adjective. That means it describes a noun. Now, the definition of cruel means knowingly to cause pain or distress to others. She was causing distress to Hansel, wasn't she, by locking him in the cage? So we could use it in a sentence. For example, the man was cruel because he hit the dog. What a horrible man. Now we have some synonyms. That means words that mean the same. Callous, heartless, atrocious. The man was atrocious because he hit the dog. But we have some antonyms. That means the opposite. So the opposite to cruel, we have some words that mean the opposite. Kind, gentle, sympathetic. Now, if I change cruel and hit in that sentence, the man was gentle because he stroked the dog. The man was kind because he patted the dog. The man was sympathetic because he fed the dog. Do you see how I changed it there? We're going to have a look at some more synonyms and antonyms later on. Let's continue with the story. One day, the old woman showed Gretel the oven, and she was going to cook Hansel in. Oh dear, she looks very mean and menacing, doesn't she? Gretel decided to trick the old woman. She told that Hansel was too big to fit in the oven, and the old woman leaned forward to take a closer look. And she pushed her straight into the oven. Next, Gretel found the key to the cage and unlocked it so Hansel could get out. They were overjoyed! Yay! Before leaving, Hansel and Gretel had a look around this gingerbread house. They found a chest full of gold coins, and they decided to bring the chest home with them. Yes! After a long walk through the forest, Hansel and Gretel eventually found a path they recognised, and they ran excitedly along the path, and they finally saw their home in the distance. But what about the stepmother? Oh no! There, outside the cottage, was their father. Their stepmother had died. Now they had enough riches to last them a lifetime and would never be hungry again. Yay! Oh, that makes me feel very happy. And the three of them lived happily ever after. I am so pleased that happened. Well done. Did you enjoy that? I did too. I have some questions I want to ask you. So I'm going to show you the answer to the first one. We're going to talk it through. And the next one we're going to talk through as well. And then you've got these to answer to on your worksheet. So let's have a think. What did Hansel drop along the path? Was it pebbles, buttons, or breadcrumbs? Now here in my question, it tells me I can tick two. So not just one thing, I can tick two things. We had something very shiny in his hand, didn't he, that the moon would glow from. That was it. It was pebbles. So he collected some pebbles. And the second time he went out, he had a piece of bread. So it can't be buttons that he dropped. It was breadcrumbs. Well done. Now, let's have a go at this one together. So we're going to put into order the events that happened. So, number one, Hansel and Gretel lived in the woods. But which one was number two? Was it that their father left them in the forest? Was it that they lived happily ever after? Or was it that the old woman locked Hansel in the cage? Pause the video here, and I just want you to write number two next to the next event. Okay, have you done that one? Let's see if we've got it right. That's it. Now, I want you to write number three next to the next event. Was it that they lived ever after, or was it the old woman locked Hansel in the cage? Excellent. It was that she locked him in the cage. Well done. And then so the last one must be that they lived happily ever